person. And I'm really charged up about this because being a part of a community, feeling connected, we know, you know, this is super important. I mean, the uh, the blue zones really state this too. And I am so psyched today to have Deb and Jenn talk to us broadly about being connected to a community, but learn about this unique program that they've developed called CircleTalk. So let me welcome Deb and Jenn to the stage, and we will kick off this discussion here. How y'all doing?
Doing great.
All
Thanks for
right.
having us here, Steve.
Oh, you bet. Okay. Well, let's first kick this off let's get to know the two of you. I'm going to start with Deb. Deb, you're the founder of Circle Talk, which we're going to learn about in a little bit, but tell us, what was your journey to founding such an innovative concept?
It was long and winding. I'll start there. Um, if I just look at my career path, it's always been about connecting people and letting people feel heard. I've been a facilitator, a process leader for many, many years, and in a variety of governmental and nonprofit settings. And I learned that you really need a structure for people to step forward and feel like other people are really tuned into what they're saying. And you know that as a facilitator, that's just your job. And I so many years of leading groups and leading communications workshops got me really keenly tuned into how we don't do that mostly, and how the best way for people to get what they need out on the table, especially in organizations, families, Jenn can speak to this, is to create a structure for that to happen. So that's, without diving into the weeds, that's my ethos and
Yeah,
how.
and folks, this is a great way to frame this, is because I think we're gonna learn about that structure and experience that structure and what you've created with Circle Talk. But let's get to know Jenn. So Jenn, you're not part of the Circle Talk organization per se, but you've been trained on this process that we're going to learn about from Deborah. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so thanks, Steve. Yeah, I've been trained as a Circle Talk facilitator. So my background, like Deb's, is really varied. My career path has been kind of twisty, turny. But like Deb, what I've loved most about everything that I've done is connecting with people and helping people to feel more connected to one another, helping people to find that common ground that really ties them and connects them. So about 5 years ago, I became certified as a life coach. I do a lot of transition coaching, helping people who are going through big changes in their lives to kind of figure out what they want their next chapter to look like, and then helping them to kind of proactively create that future instead of just waiting to see what happens to them. So within that, I've really spent a lot of time carving out a niche working with people whose parents are aging and declining and who are overwhelmed by the impact that's having on their lives. That kind of was born out of my experience with my dad, who had Alzheimer's and passed away about 9 years ago. And as I was kind of going through that journey with him, I realized that anytime I talked to someone whose parents were declining, I kept having the same conversations. And there's so many of us out there who are juggling multiple balls, taking care of our families, our kids, or have jobs, relationships, and now have our parents' care on top of that. So really finding a way, and I realized there weren't a lot of resources out there for those of us who really didn't identify as caregivers, but are just like the kids who are trying to figure things out. So I love supporting people who are in that place. And a colleague told me about CircleTalk, and when I learned about it, I thought, oh, this will be great because just being able to connect with older adults in the way that CircleTalk allows has just broadened my perspective and has helped me just to bring more insight into the conversations I'm having with those adult kids, and also to coach and support seniors as they go through their own transitions. So
I
that's my
love it.
story.
Yeah, and that tees us up perfectly for what the heck is CircleTalk? What is it? And like when how do you answer that question?
Deb?
It's such a simple idea. It's ridiculous in some ways. CircleTalk is a model, a program model, where you gather a small group, ideally 6 to 10 people, and lead them in a group discussion around a theme for the week. You meet multiple times so that you create a safe space, so that you create a familiar space, so that you create a space that people crave to come back to, because what they're talking about every week is fascinating. It's interesting, it's engaging, and it connects them not only to other people in the group, but to their own story. So we created the program model, and we created in a very evocative, field-tested year-long curriculum for leaders and a leader training program.
And now I'm sure that you've had this question when it's brought up. Well, how is this different from a support group or you see it on the calendar at every senior community. Hey, we're talking about current events this week.
I'm gonna let Jenn chime in too, because she has this felt sense of what we're doing. We have carefully curated our curriculum to cover really important life themes. And the way we enter into those discussions is through, I know this is, people look like deer in headlights when I say this, poetry, short stories, quotes, things that stimulate discussion about a very universal and deep life theme. And leaders are trained to guide that discussion so that everyone leaves feeling like I was heard. And that's the art and science of it.
And I'm glad you brought up art, because there really is an art to having discussions, and we spotlight so many sort of artistic approaches on this platform, because it's hard to talk about something like death, okay? But if you hear a poem being read, all of a sudden you can have a deep discussion about it. But if I said, hey, what are your end of life choices? It's sort of like, I don't want to talk about that. But well, yeah, Jenn, dive in, and then I'd love it if you all would a, you know, how do you facilitate something like this? How do you get trained and dive in a little bit deeper there?
Yeah, definitely. We'll go over that. I think it just adding on to what Deb shared, I think that support groups are awesome. They certainly have their purpose. I think that what's different about this is it really offers a framework for people to get to know each other in a different way. I talked to a lot of senior community residents who say, they move in and everyone's very nice, everyone's friendly, but I still feel lonely is what I often hear. And I don't know, it's not that anyone isn't nice or isn't welcoming. It's just really hard to make friends. It's hard at this point in our lives to make friends. And I often tell people, that makes a lot of sense because at other points in our lives, we're kind of primed for new friendships. We maybe go away to college and move into a dorm where everybody's just moving into a dorm and everyone's ready to kind of explore the next chapter together. Or those of us have kids, maybe have babies and join like a new mom support group, and everyone's asking, like, how many hours is your baby sleeping? We have that common ground. But when people get to this later stage in their lives, often they're just not sure of where that common ground. They can talk about the weather, they can talk about what's on the menu, what they're having for dinner, but figuring out a way to deepen the conversation can be tough. And a lot of people have said to me, at this point in our lives, like people aren't really looking for new friends. They don't want to make new friends. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that a lot of people are looking for those friendships. They're just not sure how to initiate that. So CircleTalk provides a great format and framework for getting people to a point where they're learning more about each other than just what they want to have for dinner or what they watched on TV last night. They're learning about
Yeah.
each other's history. So I think, Deb, if you're up for it, probably demoing it is the best way
Oh,
of,
that would be great. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, and then I see Deborah Smith, who is on our webinar today, has some great
Oh,
questions
yeah. No, Deborah says
afterwards,
how to
because
manage
right,
digressing while
how to
in a
manage
circle.
that discussion. Yeah, it's so important, and we'll talk about that when we get back then.
Okay, great, great. Okay, so we're going to do a demo here.
Yeah. And is it possible to bring a couple people, a couple volunteers on?
Sure. If anybody would like to join us, raise your little virtual hand. There's a button down at the bottom that says, okay, let's see. And so we got Jennifer who's gonna join. So I'm bringing you on stage, Jennifer. And when you get on stage, you can turn your mic and camera on if you'd like, but definitely turn your mic on at a minimum. And let's see, we got Martha. Martha is great. We did a playback theater discussion, and Martha, I was very memorable with Martha. Is two enough, or should we get
Yep.
some more? Okay,
No, this
two's
is
good.
perfect.
Okay,
Then
great,
we'll be
great.
able to get through it pretty quickly.
Okay, so yeah, Martha, hopefully you got your let me just make sure. Okay, there's Martha. Hey, Martha. Okay, let's make sure we can hear Martha and Jennifer. If you just say something, I just want to make sure. And Jennifer, if you unmute.
I'm happy to be here.
Oh, good, good.
Hi, good to be here also.
Okay, great, great.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you all. It would have been really embarrassing if we asked for volunteers and nobody raised their hand. So okay, so I'll let you all kick it off.
Okay. So Deb and I are going to be kind of co-leading this circle today, and I'll cover kind of the first two sections, the first two elements, and then she'll take over at that point. So you'll kind of see that'll make sense as we as we go along. So the first thing we always do is kind of a settling. So I'd like you to, we're going to start by, I'll ask you to just put both of your feet on the floor, relax your shoulders, place your hands in your lap, take a couple deep breaths. And then gently close your eyes if you're comfortable. And imagine that you're sitting on a bench in the middle of a large meadow. There are wildflowers surrounding you and a lovely grove of trees in the distance with a brook running through it. You hear the wind passing through the trees. You hear the water trickling over the rocks. You feel the expansiveness of the meadow around you. Now, let that image fade. Breathe in, breathe out. And gently rub your hands together. And slowly open your eyes. And welcome to the circle. The next thing that we'll do is a warm-up. This is just a quick question. You don't need to think too hard about this. When you answer, I'll ask that you try to be brief, maybe 20 to 30 seconds to share your answer with the group. Our warm-up question today is, what was your favorite game when you were a child, say 10 years old or younger? What was your favorite thing that you liked to play? I know for myself, I love to play dress up. My best friend Tracy would come over. We had all these like dress up clothes that had come from my grandmother, my mom, bridesmaids dresses that my mom wore when she was younger. We love to play dress up, and I have really wonderful memories of that. So I'll just go around the circle now and call on each of you. Steve, what did you like to do
I
as
get
a
to go
child?
first. Okay, well, when you said game, what popped into my mind instantly was board games,
Mhm.
and the game that just fascinated me and I enjoyed playing it's Mousetrap, and it's this you built this Rube Goldberg sort of setup, and it was I just thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, I remember Mousetrap. That's great. Thank you. Deb, I'm calling on you in the order that you're like in the circle on my screen. Deb?
Okay, I can be very brief. I grew up with all brothers, and the only game I was good at with them was hide and seek.
Mm.
They could never find me, so I loved it. I always felt like I won.
That's great. Martha, what did you like to play as a child?
One of the games was jacks at school.
Mm-hmm.
It was challenging. I wasn't very good at it, but it was very consuming and communal. So
Yeah, I remember playing Jacks. I remember like going to the five and dime store and seeing like the packages of Jacks and all the
I
toys.
tried playing not too long ago, and it is not easy to pick those up.
Take some
It's
dexterity.
yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Jennifer, how about you? What did you like to play as a child?
Um, well, like Deb, I grew up with mostly boys, and so I climbed trees. I did play a bit of jacks, but primarily I was outdoors in a tropical country,
Oh,
and it was primarily climbing those trees, those really hard ones. Yeah,
yeah. Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Wonderful. I'm gonna turn things over. Thank you all for sharing. And Deb, I'll let you step in.
Thank you, Jen. We're going to move into what we call our main theme for the week. And as you know, every week is the same and every week is different. So this week's theme is based on a poem by Carl Sandburg called Joy. And I'm hoping that Steve can pull it up on the screen so we can all look at it.
Oh, okay, good. Yep. Here we go. Glad you sent that to me. I didn't even realize that that was part of this. So let me share my screen. And where are we at here? Okay. All right.
Thank you. So this is what we've been hand out to everyone in the circle, and then we would ask someone to volunteer to read it. So do we have a volunteer to read Joy?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, thank you.
Joy. Let a joy keep you. Reach out your hands and take it when it runs by. Joy always, joy everywhere. Let joy kill you. Keep away from little death by Carl Sandburg.
Hey, oh, Jennifer, that was actually a really beautiful reading. Have you ever seen this poem before?
No,
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm happy to be introduced to it.
well, thank you for, yeah, that was a beautiful reading of Joy. So, Joy is a short but juicy poem, I think, around this term that we use all the time everywhere. And I'm curious to hear from you. This can be anybody can jump in. Is there a line or a phrase in this poem that either makes you curious or you like?
Well, I will say, "Let joy kill you," raised my eyebrow when it was read, for sure.
Okay, why is that, Steve?
Um, and she wrote it, read it beautifully, but it was, I was just, it was one of these things where I think I was just in this harmonious space of thinking about joyful events in my life, and then it was like almost like a narrative, whatever they call it, narrative jump in a drama where it's like, let joy kill you. And it was, I'm still processing that. Is like, what did Carl Sandburg mean by that? And really got me thinking.
Can you just jump back to that poem for one more
Oh, absolutely.
minute?
Let me let
Okay,
me let
thanks.
me share that. Yeah, let me just
And
keep
does
it on screen.
anybody else wonder about that phrase? What do you think it means? Martha?
Absolutely. It jumped out at me also. And part of it was, well, let me die with joy rather than, and then the next line, keep away from little deaths, just is a reminder of just how easy it is to rob one of joy. And the whole idea of killing joy is then comes up.
Wonderful. You know, I learn something every time when we debrief this poem because everybody experiences it a little bit differently. Jennifer, anything that makes you wonder in this poem?
Absolutely. I think let joy kill you is kind of my motto. I try to wallow in joy, unapologetically, and keep away from little deaths. I I just wanted to totally immerse me, and if death is to come, I want to die joyfully. So yeah, it's an amazing poem.
It really is. And man, what I love hearing everybody's analysis of that. And I really do feel like, at least my interpretation of keep away from little deaths is, if we have to die and we die because we lived a joyful life, or at least we had tried to live a joyful life, that's a natural progression. But in our daily lives, we have these little deaths. It's kind of like these things that just they take us back, and figuring out our coping mechanisms to get through those little deaths. Well, there's a lot more here than I expected.
Well, always. So we because of time, we can't linger on this, but in a real circle, we would spend 10, 12 minutes, maybe even longer, discussing this poem with people because it brings up so much on the big level about joy.
And
Now
let
we're
me
gonna,
make sure here, let me make sure to read some of the
yeah,
other audience. So, well, Laura says my version of this poem is longer, but then RH says, if you're going to do something, do it big. Don't short yourself. Well said, RH. And Wanda says, kill them with joy. And Diana says, life is short. We need to enjoy every minute.
beautiful. So it's all that and more. Exactly. There is so much. People get nervous around poetry, and in CircleTalk, we've trained our leaders to teach to lead people in a debrief that's very accessible, that makes poetry like right there in your lap. You can talk about it. Now we're going to just drop quickly into personal story about joy. And in CircleTalk, we ask people again to think of our agreements that we've introduced earlier in the program. One is there are no wrong answers. And another is use your 1 minute muscle. So whatever you're going to contribute, try to contain it with your 1 minute muscle. And here are the agreements that we pass out in the very first circle. There's 6 agreements that we ask people to understand and agree to. And we give people an option to pass. So I'm not going to run through all of them now, but we're going to hear from people in terms of your story, your kind of very brief but specific story on a moment of joy or an experience of joy in your life. What is that? Where do you go when I ask that question? So I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to think about it, and then we'll come back and hear what people have to say. And as we do in every circle, I'll go first, and then we'll go around and hear from everyone else. My moment of joy is it changes all the time. I'm lucky for that sometimes I wonder, where do I want to land today? Most recently, my son got married in December to someone that we love. We love them both, and it was a gorgeous, simple, beautiful wedding and 2 families coming together moment. And every time I think about it, I feel it right here in my heart. So that's my moment, my memory of joy for 2023, 24. Jenn, what about you?
Yeah, so similar to you, Deb. My it's such a simple pleasure, but I have 3 kids. They're all in their 20s now and are spread apart, and I love any time that we can all be together. And so I'm thinking about a time back in May. My daughter was home from Boston. My son was home from Aspen. My other son, who lives here, was home. We all had dinner together. My husband's a great cook, made a great dinner. And we sat around, and after everyone had finished eating, we just sat at the table and talked and laughed. And that's what brings me the biggest joy, like that connection with family and having those moments where we don't have to be at a fancy restaurant. We don't have to go any place. Just like sitting around the kitchen table is really what I love more than anything.
Thank you. Sounds wonderful. Martha.
So I've bounced around with different ideas, but I'm going to take a really simple one. My mother is declining. She's 99 years old. But one of the things that gives me joy is when she is relaxed and involved in what we're offering. And what we do is we invite her to play a game. And so this past Sunday, I said, okay, Spanish or French words A to Z. And then we each take turns making things. And during that time, she was relaxed. She was breathing easily. And we were all challenged because it's not necessarily easy to think of, oh, a word that begins with L, right at the moment. So that's my offering.
Lovely. Thank you, Martha. And Jennifer, what about you?
I don't have one moment of joy. I have many interests. Music and poetry. So I explore all kinds of music and I write all kinds of poems. And so I get joy just from hearing the cadence, the strings in some kinds of music. So I'm sorry, I can't say one. Just hearing music just I become alive and I want to move my body and just have, incredible fun. So that's where I am. Or composing a poem, doing a poem or a song.
Lucky you. Lucky you. Thank you, Jennifer. And Steve, what about you?
Well, I've got something that I'll share, but I also want to share Diana, who just said, sharing my life with my husband. I enjoy every moment. His soul is full of love. And what a great moment to share there, Diana. It's interesting. I did a bike ride over 3 days this past weekend with my family and one of my brother's good friends, and we had questions like this that we were asking. And when there was a similar question, and I immediately went to my kids being born and being around my family. But then I caught myself and I said, I mean, that is very important to me, my family and what have you. But what I've found, especially with doing these discussions, is that there are so many people out there that don't have the benefit of a family or people close to them. And where I find joy is helping somebody who needs help make a connection that improves their life. If I can play any role in that, it just really gives me a good feeling. And it's not to say that I don't want to help my family members make connections. I get that too, but somebody that might not have the benefit, that just, man, that really makes me feel joy.
Thank you. Now we've got a circle. If we were sitting actually together in a circle, our center is full of what we just talked about, which is pretty full. And I'm just going to quickly go back around and tell you what I heard. I heard Steve talk about he gets joy from bringing something joyful to other people. That you get more than when you give, you get so much. And in the joy arena, it's immense. And I heard Jennifer talk about what makes her feel alive and woken up in the world, which is music and poetry, and it fills her up almost to overflowing is what I heard from you, Jennifer. And Martha talked about playing with your mom at 99, and that experience is one that you just was locked in your brain as a really positive, wonderful moment for everyone. And Jenn talked about food, family connection, and the kitchen table. And, it doesn't get any better than that, mostly. So I want to thank all of you for bringing parts of yourself to this discussion. And we are going to close our circle now. And I just want to say that normally you'd have about 20 minutes or more to talk about this and to really go back in and have a little more fuller discussion with the group. But we always end by summarizing. As a leader, we summarize the circle input so that people heard themselves twice. And now we're just going to do a quick exit. Let's say goodbye in a different language to each other. I'm going to turn to Jenn and say sayonara, Jenn. And yeah, turn to someone else in the circle.
Okay. Au revoir, Steve.
Adios, Jennifer.
Oh,
Oh, did I? Yeah, it's the
you
only language I
surprised
know.
Steve, but that's okay. Bye-bye. See you again, Steve.
And to Martha.
To Martha. Yes.
Yes, to Martha. And Martha, you get to say goodbye to me in a different language.
Au revoir. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
So
Well,
that concludes just a quick modeling of what happens.
well, and like this seems so simple, but had we just sort of gathered together at a coffee shop and not had the structure, I think that our conversation would be much more superficial. I see what you mean. Like, I want to get together with this group again. I want to take this to the next level. And do you see that, Jenn, in your facilitation?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I'll come back to your question about support groups and how, a support group is another way that people do kind of form deep connections, but support groups can be really heavy. And when you're in a support group and everyone's sharing maybe what they're struggling with, what challenges they're facing, it's easy to you can empathize, you can build connections, but it's not energizing. It's not always energizing in the same way as this type of conversation is.
And I in terms of the structure, I call it setting the table in a group, that we tee things up with agreements so that the leader, getting to one of the comments here, the leader has a toolbox to manage digression, domination, all those problems that come up in circles. The leader role is established early on in a very light way because the leader participates too. So it's very even feeling around the circle. We focus the group around a poem, a short story, a photo, a quote, so that we take a deep dive into that universal theme. Then we go to personal story. You cannot get to good personal story unless you start with something like Carl Sandburg's poem to get everyone warmed up. We do that in every chapter of the curriculum, which is a very unique factor and allows people to really show up and really express more of themselves in a faster way. And then we summarize. It's like we heard you. Everybody heard you. And we have a closing. So it's a little ritualized at the same time. And people love ritual.
The other thing that's really nice about the curriculum is it's kind of cumulative. Like the early circles, you start out with questions that are a little bit easier to answer, talking about, joy, what's a joyful moment for you, that kind of thing. As the weeks go on, the questions just become a little bit more personal. And by that point, in the circle, people have developed a trust among them. And so that's really nice too, to see that kind of building over time.
Well, this is very cool. So now,
Could you jump to that slide where we show the curriculum?
let's see here. Okay. Whoops. Okay. So, all right. This one here.
No, keep going. That's our training program. Okay, here's a curriculum. We have a professionally designed curriculum that is verbatim, so you can sit down with it on your lap and lead the group. We teach you the facilitation techniques, and then you lead the group every week with different themes and topics. So I just wanted to show people that it's an actual physical book that you get, that's your main tool in leading these groups.
Okay, great. Let's see, Chris, oh, well, I want to say on the goodbyes, Diana said hasta pronto, and RH says eight logo, which is Portuguese, and I know I didn't pronounce it correctly. But Chris asks, how many people in a circle is ideal?
6 to 8 to 10. If you're really, I just led one with 13 people. That was exhausting, but you can do it.
Okay.
I think the sweet spot is maybe 8 to 10 people.
Yeah, I mean, I can really see where, like after a conversation like this, I'd love to, chat with Jennifer and Martha more and, get to know the other people in the church in the circle. Regina says, an excellent circle talk. I loved it. Looking forward to the next one. How do I register for your circle talk? So what's the best way for somebody now? And we did this virtual online, but are these online and virtual, and how can people get involved in a circle talk if they'd like to?
Well, if you're a practitioner, a professional, you can get trained and lead them in your work setting. If you are a lone wolf out there wanting to lead circles, we give you lots of ideas in our training of how to start them.
Okay.
And if you live in a residence or attend a local senior center, you can tell people there that you're interested in this program, and will they check it out to bring it into their setting.
So
Sometimes faith communities will offer them sometimes.
okay. So Reginald, like if you want to get involved in a circle talk, I gave the emails for Jenn and Deborah. Reach out to them, and if there's a practitioner nearby, they'll connect you. And if not, maybe just brainstorm on an organization you're a part of, and we can help get it going. But you know what? This has been really fun doing this online. I could also see you all doing
We did lots of circles. Of course, we're an in-person program, started 14 years ago, but when COVID hit us, we converted everything to Zoom circles and realized that we can do Zoom circles. And we did those for 2 years in senior centers, in assisted living, independent living. And the other, just to answer your other question, Steve, if people go to our website, circletalk.org, it's very easy. There's a training tab. You can find out all about our training program, which is virtual, and then 3 Zoom calls over 4 weeks to get coached and ready to start the program.
Oh, okay, and I see you've got one starting September 3rd and October 29th. And then you're going to also meet other Circle Talk leaders as well in that journey, which is great.
We
And
do a lot of practice. Yeah.
Anne Marie said these would be great at senior centers. Is that a frequent place where they're okay? Um, and then Diane says Jen mentioned at the beginning that she was frequently experiencing people who were either caregivers of parents or spouses overwhelmed with them. Do you find this program has helped with that population?
So yeah, couple things. There are circles. I haven't led one, but there are circles that incorporate both the older adults and their children or caregivers. That can be a great way of just helping to deepen understanding between people, giving people something to talk about other than what time do you need your next medication, when's your next doctor's appointment. So circles that incorporate caregivers, family members can be great. Also for people who are caring for parents, I think the other impact that I see is people who are engaged in circles often feel less lonely, less isolated, feel more fulfillment in their life. They get fulfillment from participating in circles that kind of trickles down and makes things easier for their caregivers because they're in a happier, better place.
All right. And then uh Jean asks, what is the cost of the program?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. Okay, so for our online program, it's $4.95 per person, but if you register
That's to be trained.
to be trained,
Train, yeah.
yes. If that's the question, is that the question?
Well, I'm assuming that's probably your only cost because most of the places that run a Circle Talk don't charge for that, correct?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
And I just wanted to plug that if anyone registers for our training as a result of today, you get a 20% discount on the tuition.
Okay, no, that's great. And uh excellent. And I've dropped those links in, and I'll make sure that they're very prominent on the recording link that'll be at proaging.com later today, along with emails for Jen and for Deborah. Well, I think we got through a bunch of questions. This has been great. I love this demo. I had no idea what to expect, but I really see the value in it. And Deb and Jen, is there anything that we haven't brought up that you want to make sure to let folks know?
Boy, I just want to say some of the ethos in our program is based on people like Parker Palmer and Brene Brown. And Brene Brown says that without belonging and connection, people suffer. And I just see that so much. You hear these stories so much. And I hope this presentation has given people more insight into how you draw people in to feel known, heard, and valued. And that's really the bottom line for us.
Yeah, and I think that very well said. And Jennifer, you had mentioned that poetry is one of your passions. Honestly, like I haven't the last time I analyzed a poem, I was in a college poetry class, and it was more of a chore. It wasn't an opportunity to make a connection. And I just see one thing that I walked away from today is a great way to have a meaningful dialogue with someone is to just pick any poem and and have a discussion about it, and how much more well connected I feel to everybody on the screen right now through doing that.
And the magic question is, what makes you curious, or what do you like? Pick a line, word, or phrase. We do that throughout the curriculum.
Hmm.
And that's your tool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'll if there's still another minute, I can wrap up by sharing
oh, I'd love.
like an experience, a couple experiences that have been great. I think having that outside object, the poem or the painting, there was one circle that I led where there was a picture of just a beach scene that led to just this really rich conversation about people's memories of beach, people's associations with the beach, with water, vacations. And that was great. The first group I led, there were two women who, by the end of the circle, by the end of the 13 weeks, um, had become pretty good friends. And when I asked them, like, okay, like, what do you think? Like, what's your how would you sum this up? What did you get out of this? The one said, you know, we had both just moved into this was at a community. We had just moved into this community when we started coming on Thursday afternoons. And we probably would have met each other. We would have seen each other in passing, but we probably wouldn't have thought we had anything in common. The one said, "Oh, I know Joan always wants to watch whatever sports games are on TV, and I'm not a sports fan, so I just thought our interests were completely different." And she said, "But I get the paper every day, and I used to throw away the sports section because I don't read the sports section. But now that I know that Joan loves sports, I give her the sports section every day." And Joan was like, I mean, I don't subscribe to the paper anymore, but I love reading the sports section. So that just the seeing how the two of them had kind of found this win-win opportunity was great. And then there was another woman who had come, kind of dropped in and out. She was with her husband who was having some declining health issues. And one week she came and sat down. And after a few minutes, she got up and said, I just can't do this. I need to be with my husband. And that was fine. Then we didn't see her for a few weeks. But on the day of our last circle, she came back. We were about halfway through and she said, "Oh, you've already started. I'll go." And I said, "No, no, no, please, like, sit down. You're welcome to stay." And she shared that hospice had just come to be, her husband had just entered hospice care. And she was, of course, like very emotional, but felt so safe in rejoining the group and in sharing that. And when she was able to tell people, well, my kids are coming, the other people in the group were like, even the one who's in Israel, even the one even your granddaughter in California, because the prior conversations had given them enough of her history, just to help be supportive of her in that moment. So that was really beautiful too.
I love it.
So,
All right, folks, this has been amazing. Thank you, Jennifer and Martha, for volunteering. You really made this discussion one of my favorites, I can tell you. I love it when we have engagement like this, and we connect community members like the two of you. And then Jen and Deborah, so grateful for you sharing CircleTalk and the broader picture of us making connections with others.
yeah.
So
Thanks
everybody,
again for having us, Steve.
yeah, everybody enjoy your Labor Day weekend. I hope the weather's great wherever you are. And this has been a wonderful discussion. All right.
You.
Take care.